How's it going, everyone? Just wanted to do a quick little lesson in here. So, obviously, bearish. Now, go ahead and look at the hourly. Right? If we're going to continue lower, why would we want to see this area hold? At my chart here. Hourly, taking a look. You notice I that the point of it form a swing out of that. I think Garrett traded. And then we close below this, right? So if we're going to continue this trend lower, we don't want to see price disrespect this high. And if you take what we know about opposing candles, you want to see 0.5 of this be respected, right? So this is a scenario where this makes sense as a point of interest because there is no fair value gap or high to be taken out in here. Then we have a candle 2 closure, right? And with the candle 2 closure, we can look to trade this lower in the lower half of this. So clean up the chart a little, go down to 5-minute, throw on this, and switch it to bearish. So going into this, right, we'll go ahead and look at E. Slightly cleaner on the framework for this lesson. What I wanted to talk about here is when you kind of have an opposing candle formation with the change in delivery, right? So we know if we find this high, where do we change the state of delivery? Right there. So going into candle 3, we have everything we need to look for an entry, right? You can use this fair value gap level, right? That's a point of interest. Where do we get the intra candle change delivery? That's when we close below this level, right there. Right? So it's valid to just look for entries right away, right? Looking short, my stop on this high, right? Looking lower. What I wanted to talk about is if you wanted to positionally enter yourself, this is what I mean about that is at the open of this candle, where is an invalidation? Not really wanting to see price trade above area, right? Or above these opposing candles. Now it's not super great here because we have this large wick, but just for drawing's sake, if we add something that looks like that, right? And then no large wick here, it's like we have an invalidation right here, close to the opening. So that's something where it's like, if I'm very confident, I can retest. Now, what I was explaining in chat was just this, right? Once we get the closer through here, right, that's our intra-candle change in the state delivery. So let me replay this. That's the intra-candle change. So now I'm expecting this wick formed and this high to remain if we're going to expect lower or trade lower. So from here, it's not a very setup, right? But if price retraces back into the area, right, I want to see this high hold. Like I want to see that form a lower high to trade lower. So then trace back into this range. That's fine, right? And then we have a bearish closure, right? So it might not look like much, but if you understand the structure, right? Doing something like that, but there, we go make a high, we make a low, we make a high, right? So this is where I threw it in chat, but I was like saying, if I was going to be taking this, when I saw it, I would just enter here. Why could I have my stop here instead of this high? Is just because if I'm looking on, I'm understanding the lower time frame. This came back in and retested this range that I don't expect to be taken out. So it might be easy. Probably not. But anyways, I'm just expecting this new high to hold if we're going to all it is. So going back to NQ, up, why that one's lagging. Give it a minute. I'm going to pause it until it's all right. So we are back, and that is why when I marked up an example, I said, oh, if this was at a different time and a different day, and we're not already down to 4% or whatever we are, and not in the afternoon session, this is like very clean structure, right? Because I have the reversal, right? So I'm expecting this high to remain up, right? And then not only, but we get a retest of this. So I'm expecting this high to hold. And in this new candle, we give a new high, right? So at this point, I'm anticipating us to trade to this low. So what I threw up in chat, and I'll link it, hey, if I was going to be trading this, I would just trade open of that candle, put my stop on that high, looking for. So, right, and so I'll link that. But the whole reason this makes sense here is trying to explain it. It's a bit more complex, but right, if you think about this leg down, we come back up into this leg, not expecting this high to go. We come down, we make a new low by sweeping out, and then we also retest this, right? So if price goes and trades back up to this high, I expect this high to get taken. So that's why it makes sense in terms of an invalidation. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully, maybe a bit of a ramble, but it's a good example of good structure here. I mainly just wanted to point out that when we have these opposing candles formed prior to the change in the state of delivery, they can still be used, but it's mostly after we have this change. I'm not looking at these until we have the closure through.